Today training is about wood dust and occupational asthma. Why did I choose this topic? Because if you are pursuing any NEBOSH IGC training or NEBOSH diploma, there is one chapter regarding wood dust and occupational asthma. So this chapter is very important for those who is pursuing NEBOSH training and for those also who is managing health and safety at work also, and if they are doing any wood work also, so it would be very important for them. So before we start our training, let me tell you that this training gonna be very important for you, so please be with me. And during this training we will discuss about some real incident also, and we'll try to learn about the corrective actions as well. Okay, so let's start our training. So what we're gonna cover today in this trainings, first of all, we'll discuss about the symptoms of asthma, woods that cause asthma, preventing exposure, respirators, your right to know as a worker, exposure limits, other hazardous substances, and additional resources. All these topics we will discuss today. So wood dust can be hazardous. Exposure to wood dust is common in many industries, including your furniture or cabinet making, constructions, logging, sawmill and paper mills, plywood, particle board, and fiberboard plants. Breathing wood dust can cause a variety of health problems. One of the most serious is occupational asthma. So wood dust can be hazardous. As we know that asthma is a lung condition that can cause chest tightness, breathing difficulty, cough, and wheezing. It can be disabling and or rare occasions fatal. When caused by conditions on your job, it is called occupational asthma. Besides occupational asthma, wood dust also has other hazards which are not covered here, but other hazards that you want to learn more, you can try some reference in the Google as well. So dust from wood such as oak, mahogany, or ash can cause nasal cancer as well as irritate your skin and eyes. So wood dust can be hazardous. Occupational asthma is preventable. We can prevent this asthma also. And if you work with wood, the key is to keep your exposure to wood dust as low as possible. This overview will show you how. So in this one, I'm showing you one of the story where one sawmill worker was infected by the wood dust. So a mill worker developed occupational asthma after working with wood for 5 years. He was continuously working with the wood 5 years. His regular job was to work wood with a planing machine and stack the wood. Eventually, he began to experience wheezing and shortness of breath. These symptoms often cleared up during weekends and vacations, but became worse during the work week. So not only was the mill worker exposed to dust directly when cutting wood, but his entire work area also had a lot of wood dust around. Ventilation was poor, and he was never trained about the health hazards of wood dust and how to protect himself. After the mill worker was diagnosed with asthma, he underwent 7 months of medical treatment. However, he still was not able to walk around wood dust. So that was one of the story about the worker who was working continuously with the sawmill and working with the wood. Now, symptoms of asthma. You may have occupational asthma if you work around wood dust and develop these symptoms. So these are the symptoms of asthma. You may feeling wheezing, tightness in the chest, cough, and shortness of breath. Symptoms can show up within a few months after you are exposed to wood dust, or they may not appear until you have been exposed for several years. So symptoms of asthma, they can be chronic and they can be developed after a week also, and they will take several years. So you may first notice symptoms after you leave work each day. Often the symptoms clear up before you return to work the next day. They usually worsen during the work week and get better or disappear during weekends and vacations. So whenever you are in contact with the wood dust, these symptoms will get worse and worse. And whenever you will go away from the wood dust, like vacation or weekends, where you are not coming into contact with the wood dust, so these symptoms will go down. Why? Because you are not getting that wood dust and you are not inhaling that dust in your body. So that's why the symptoms they are getting down. Now, if you have any of these symptoms, talk to your employer, union, or doctor right away. In some cases, your doctor may limit your exposure or tell you that you can no longer work around wood dust. So that can be prevented. Now, workers with occupational asthma may have severe symptoms if they come in contact with even a tiny amount of wood dust. Early diagnosis of occupational asthma and removal from exposure can prevent your asthma from getting worse. So these are the preventable actions that we can take. Now, does all wood dust cause asthma? What do you say? So most type of wood dust can irritate your lungs and cause other breathing problems. Sometimes wood dust can cause asthma or make it worse. Some woods contain chemicals that make allergic reaction like asthma more likely. A few common examples are California redwood, teak, western red cedar, oak, and ash. Now, wood from some parts of a tree can be especially hazardous. The chemicals are known to cause asthma are generally found in the inner parts of the tree called the heartwood. So the hazards depend on the amount of wood dust that gets in the air and the size of dust particles. So dust particle, if it is 5 micron or less than 10 microns, so there are high chances that those dust particles will get inside your body more deeper. So if it is like more than 10 microns or 12 microns, so then they will stuck in your nasals, and during the coughing or sneezing, those particles can get out. But if the particles are very tiny, they will go directly inside your body and they will affect your lungs. And it will depend on the type of wood, the levels of asthma causing substances in the wood, the additives in the wood. Sometimes the wood which you are using, it is made of some of other woods like plywood, which is a mixture of different kind of wood. It is not a single wood. So that thing also can cause more serious issues. So how you are exposed to the dust? Maybe you are working 8 hours in a day. So that is very high exposure to the dust. Your own bodies are resistance. So if your body has the resistance, like some of the people, they have the long nasal hair. Some of the people, they hair, too much hair on the body. So these are the protective layer also that can protect their body from the dust also. So unfortunately, even with woods that are known to cause asthma, there is very little information about how much exposure can make you sick. There is even less information about health hazards from many important kinds of wood, such as those from Africa, South America, and Asia. Therefore, protection from this wood dust is critical because we don't fully understand the ability to cause asthma. So, what tasks expose worker to wood dust? You are at risk of breathing large amounts of wood dust whenever you are cutting any wood, you are working with wood, or you are finishing that wood. Then the dust particles released are so fine they can easily be inhaled. So, for example, dust can be problem when sawing, you are turning, drilling, repairing machines, routing, planning, and sanding. Because these times the dust particles will be very tiny and they will affect our breathing system. And they will go inside the lungs. Now, who takes expose workers to wood dust? What task? So tasks that can expose workers to wood dust, you can also be at risk when cleaning with compressed air. Whether you are not working with the wood dust, but you are cleaning compressed air, or you are cleaning the woodworking area. So that time also, whenever you are cleaning, those dust particles also will mix with the air, and that time you can inhale those dust particles, and you will be at risk of asthma, occupational asthma. Dry sweeping, whenever you are doing any dry sweeping, so those dust particles, they will come up. Disturbing dust on machines during maintenance work, whenever you are disturbing any dust, so those dust particles will mix up with the air. Now, preventing exposure is best. So, how we can prevent that dust exposure? The best option from wood dust is to keep it out of the air in the first place. So, what you have to do, you have to keep it out in the air. You have to make sure that the dust which is coming from the wood or it is coming from the maintenance work or some other works that should not mix up with the air. Substitutional basically use woods that are less likely to cause asthma. You have to choose the woods. First of all, that is the things that you have to do. You have to make sure that you are choosing the woods properly and you are making sure that those woods which you have chosen, they are not going to make more dust. Enclosures. Run machines inside an enclosure to decrease dust in the air. So if you are working with any wood, make sure you are enclosing that particular area. So do not open the full area, enclose that area so the dust will not go out from that particular area and will not contaminate the whole area. General ventilation. Ventilation is one of the best thing that you can install, and you make sure that those woods dust particles that will not mix up with the air. Install good roof ventilation to be effective. Ventilation system must be designed and installed by trained professionals. So it should not be like any normal maintenance people, they are installing the ventilation system. You have to make sure that these ventilation systems are installed by the professional engineers. Ventilation equipment such as filters and ducts must be checked often and properly maintained. So when you are maintaining any ventilation system, you have to make sure that you are checking those filters also. Sometimes what will happen, filters will block and they will not filter the dust. And ducts also, sometimes there is some gap. So through those gaps also, the dust will pass and that will mix up with the air. So those things also you need to check whenever you are maintaining any ventilation systems. If no ventilation system, see if there is a way to work outdoors. If you can work outdoors, that is the best system also that you can adopt. There is no ventilation system. Preventing dust, what you can do, we can do the local exhaust ventilation, which we are calling LEV. Equip woodworking machines, portable hand tools, and portable power tools with vacuum or exhaust system that capture the dust at the source before it can reach your breathing zone. So in this picture, you can see here, this is the vacuum and this is the machine which is taking the dust away from the breathing zone. Now, vacuum attachments with high efficiency particulate air HEPA, which we are calling filters, are available for many tools. So that we can use to make sure that these dust are not mixing up with the air and we are safe from these dust. Now, proper maintenance keep cutting tools sharp. As they become dull, they may release more dust particles into the air. So whenever you are using any equipments, any tools on wood, you have to make sure that these tools you are maintaining properly and they are sharp and they are not damaged. Because whenever they are dull and they are not properly maintained, they will make more dust particles and that can cause high risk. Good work practices. Be aware of how much dust is being produced that you can check. You may need more protection when you are working wood at high speed or perpendicular to the grain. For example, machine sanding causes more dust exposure than hand sanding because a larger area can be sanded in the same time. Cutting perpendicular to the grain produces more dust than cutting parallel to the grain. Now, good housekeeping is one of the best things that we can adopt and to make sure that the dust particles are not built up, not accumulated in the area, and they are not mixing up with the air. Don't just brush off your clothing, skin, and surfaces or dry sweep floors. Don't use compressed air either. This will put more dust into the air. So do keep surfaces and floor free of wood, chips, and dust. And do use wet cleanup methods. Wipe surfaces with wet rags. Use a vacuum cleaner with a HEPA filter. So avoid dry cleaning. So as much as possible, use a wet cleaning and use a HEPA filter to clean. Now, preventing good personal hygiene is one of the best things that you can follow. Make sure that these dust particles from the wood, they are not going inside your body. Wash up thoroughly and clean clothing after exposure to wood dust. Whenever you are working with the wood dust, make sure that you are keeping your uniform which you are using while you are working with work, you are keeping them separate from your normal clothes. Do not just mix up and do not go home with the same clothes. You have to make sure that after the work you are changing those clothes and you are not taking the wood dust with you. Vacuum dust from your body and clothing when washing facilities are not available. You can do the vacuum if there is vacuum cleaning available for the your laundry if the washing facilities are not available. Now, the proper waste disposable bag and seal wood dust waste since the dust can easily be released into the air. So whenever you are disposing any wood dust, you have to make sure that you are sealing the wood dust properly and you have to make sure that wood dust is properly disposed. Employees, whoever is working with the wood, need to be trained properly. They need to be trained on the particular hazards and risks involved with the wood. They need to be trained on the particular control measures. What are the control measures they have to follow? And they have to be trained about the health and the symptoms of occupational asthma. If they are feeling any or if they are getting any symptoms of occupational asthma, they need to be make sure that they are contacting the employer or they are seeking any medical conditions, medical attention. Understanding respirators. Now, the respirators are playing a very important role whenever we are working with the wood. If you work in an area with high levels of wood dust, you may need a respirator. So, in this one, you can see it is a half mask and this is a full mask. This will cover your eyes and other things also, and this will only cover your nose and mouth parts. The respirator is a face piece that provides you with clean air when you work around dust or chemicals. If your respirator fits well and works right, it can greatly reduce the amounts of dust that you breathe. For wood dust, you will probably be given a respirator that uses filters to clean the air. So there are the filters, both sides, and this side also here. These respirators come in two styles: a half face respirators, this is the one, and the full face respirator also provides eye protection. So when if you are using any respirator, I would suggest you to use always the full one, because if you will not cover your eyes, sometimes what will happen, these dust particles, if the dust particles are very small, so less than 6 or 7 microns, they will may enter your body through your mucous membrane, through the eyes. So that's why you have to protect your eyes as well. Now, filters are not all the same. It is your employer's responsibility to give you the right respirator and filter for the job. As per your job, your employer, they need to choose that what are the filters suitable for your task. Use only respirators and filters that have been approved by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH. Non-approved paper dust mask, also called comfort mask, provide little protection. However, some approved half-face respirators look similar to non-approved dust mask. Always look on the respirator for the NIOSH approval. So these are the dust masks also approved, but they will provide only little protection because they are not going to filter the dust and they are not going to cover your eyes also. Understanding respirators. Some respirators are disposable, but with others you can just replace the filter cartridge. So you have to some of them are disposable, and if it is not disposable, what you have to do, you have to replace this cartridge. If you have trouble breathing through your respirator, it may be clogged. Change the filters or the entire respirator immediately. If you are not able to breathe properly, there is a breathing difficulty, what you have to do? First, you have to change the filters, you have to check. If even it is not working, then you have to change the full respirator. Now, wearing respirators. You should wear a respirator only as a last resort if other safety measures don't give enough protection. As we know that these respirators are PPEs. So as we know that in health and safety, PPEs are the last resort. First of all, what we have to do, we have to try all other precautions like substitutional, any engineering controls, and certain other controls that we are using that we have to use first. Then at the last resort, if it, other control measures are not working, then we have to go for the PP. Wearing respirators. If you are given a respirator to use, WSHA rules say you must also get a medical evaluation. Respirators are not safe for some people. They can make your lungs and heart work harder. This can be dangerous for anyone with heart trouble, asthma, or other breathing problems. If you have already a breathing problems, then if you are using the respirator, it can make your medical condition more worse. Medical evaluation is required to make sure you can wear a respirator safely. So before using any respirator, you can consult with your doctor or you can go through your medical reports. Only then you can decide whether you have to wear a respirator or not. If you are given a respirator to use, the law says you must also get a fit test. A trained person must make sure your respirator is the right size that you have to check. Fits tightly to your face. It should be fit. Doesn't leak. Facial hair will prevent a good fit. So there should not be any gap whenever you are using any respirator. And if there is any facial hair, so they will avoid you to wear this facial respirator properly. Now, wearing a respirator, if you are given a respirator to use, the law says you may also get training. Your employer must explain you what types of respirator you have been given, what it does, what is the purpose of the respirator, how to put it on. And you must be shown how to inspect your respirator, how to check if there is any damage in the cartridge, how to clean it, how to change the filters, how to store these PPEs. So all this training need to be provided by your employer. The right to know information. According to Washington health and safety regulations, you have the right to know about the hazardous substance on your job. All wood dust, regardless of the type, is considered hazardous and is covered by the WISHA Chemical Hazard Communication Rule WAC 296-800-170. Under this rule, your employer must give you information and training about wood dust, its health effects, and how to protect yourself. So this code of practice, this regulation is about Washington. It's for the America, USA. But other countries also, if you will see your laws and regulation, there may be the uh, there may be the code of practice, there may be the regulations regarding the wood dust, how to control these wood dust. If that is not there, then there is a set rules and regulation from the ILO, International Labour Organization. If the ILO has set these rules and regulations, then definitely you have to follow these rules and regulations. Now, your employer may also have a material safety data sheet for wood dust. MSDS give information about the hazardous dust. You have the right to see the MSDS and make a copy. If you have any questions about wood dust, you can also ask your employer, your union, you can ask your company, you can ask your supervisor, so they will provide you the proper information. Now the exposure limits, how much exposure you should get whenever you are working with the wood. The only reliable way to know your exposure level is to measure the amount of dust in the air. So what you have to do, you have to measure the amount of dust that is in the air. This is called air monitoring. So you have to do the air monitoring test. You can't accurately judge your exposure just by looking at the amount of dust around or how hard it is to breathe. In many cases, your employer is required to do air monitoring. You have the legal right to see and copy the monitoring results. The air monitoring must be done by a qualified person. So air monitoring, if you are conducting air monitoring, you can use an air monitoring device or you can hire any lab persons and they can do the air monitoring and they will provide you the results. So that was all about the wood dust. Now we will touch other hazardous substance as well. So you may be exposed to many other hazardous substances while working with wood. These grow on wood or are used to treat or finish it. They include moss and fungus, glues and adhesives, resin binders, waterproofing glass, pesticides, paints, paint stripper, sealants, dyes, and bonding agents. So these are the also other hazardous substances that we are using at our work. Some of these substances can cause skin, eye, and lung irritations, allergic reaction, and other health problems. Some can also cause occupational asthma. So your employer must train you for all these hazardous substances and how to take precautions and how to use the control measures to make sure that you are not getting any risk or any hazards and any injury from these hazardous substance. Your employer must also give you the proper protective equipment such as safety goggles, safety shoes, gloves, and a respirator. So that is your employer responsibility. Okay. Thank you so much. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for your time and patience. And please do not forget to subscribe my channel and like my videos. And please do share with your friends and colleagues. I hope you like my videos. Thank you so much.